Good morning to you, wherever it is you're joining us from around the world. It's a beautiful, though very wet morning here in Lagos, but we are here to bring a little bit of warmth to you with our heated lineup of discussions here on Enterprise Weekend on Enterprise Television. I am Henry E. In a bit, we'll be going to our newspaper review segments to see what we have for you this morning, and right after that will be our main conversation also for today. I will get everything all produced for you. Please do well to visit our website at www.enterprisetvnews.com and also like, comment, and follow us on our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. With me today in the studios to do justice to the newspaper reviews and possibly in conversation is Emeka Madunagu, a journalist and a public affairs analyst. And of course, I have with me also Ziki Ibe, a public affairs analyst. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome to Enterprise Weekend today. All right, so quickly, without much ado, let's start off our newspaper reviews today with the Punch newspaper. And the big story here says minimum wage. National Assembly may propose seizing defaulting state local governments allocation. And the rider there says new minimum wage bill will be watertight, must be obeyed by all, and that's coming from the Senate. And the sub-rider, Labour hails NAS, OPS, ask the National Assembly to create good environment for a business. On the top strip of the same newspaper, we have cholera death. Toll hits 30 as 1,141 hospitalized. On the down strip of the same newspaper, the very trendy news story making rounds on different social media platforms equally had a say on the Punch, and a sex for Mark actress begs university demands a certificate return. Gentlemen, let's start off with our big story here. Minimum wage. National Assembly will propose season defaulting state local government allocations. It's been ongoing, for a while, and the little shift in papers of National Assembly and also the executive towards local government autonomy, it's news now. And right now, the National Assembly posing for season defaulted states and local governments allocation. What do you think we are talking about here? Let me start with you, Ziggy.
Well, thank you so much. About minimum wage, I should think the organized labor should go back to their drawing board and really go from the bottom up. How do I mean? Sometimes I am not bothered about what they are demanding for, but I am bothered about would they be paid as at when due? That is my stance, and that should be that labor and these affiliates should look at it holistically, how workers of the federal service and the states should be paid as at when due. That's what matters to me most. Because if you look at, as we speak, so many states of the federation have not paid 30,000 naira that is still subsisting. They've not been able to pay. In fact, some states are still owing as much as 7, 8, 10 months. I wouldn't want to mention states.
Yeah.
Okay? So how do you tell those states who have not been able to pay 30,000 naira to their list workers to pay 62,000 naira as federal government has agreed, or 150,000 naira as labor is envisaging? I should think that labor should actually go into the nitty-gritty of how is this money gonna be paid as at when due. Are workers going home with this amount of money when federal government eventually agree to pay such amount? Because it looks like elephant project to me when you say the workers will be paid 150,000 naira. Okay, some states might agree to pay, but months, years, they will not. There will be accumulated accumulated money or salaries that will not be paid.
But don't you think there's something in the offing here? Because if the National Assembly are proposing season defaulting state local government allocation, Don't you think it's because they feel seriously that with the so much funds going to grants, that is, from the federal government going to states, that it means that they have more than enough funds to take care of minimum wage when it is passed?
I look, one great strike the federal government has instituted against the governors is that they should divorce this marriage because it has not worked, and I'm not sure it's going to work. There should be a full autonomy. Don't forget, during Buhari came, it was shut down. They say the process or the way it was presented wasn't good. Now we have the Ashwaju there who had proposed to divorce these two people. And the governors has not always been at par with the government's decisions because they are gaining largely. And two, in so many ways. One of the ways again is that, you don't forget, the states conduct local government elections. That means they are still holding the upper string of the local government people. They wouldn't be in their control anymore if they are severed from the state's body. But then, what is their fear? Their fear is that the moment they are removed from them, they will not hold them again. They will not be lapdogs to them again. And the largesse that is coming to the states, because before now, we've heard that what they do is whatever thing that is left is will be shared with the local government chairman and all that. Mm. Their fear are so many. Mm. One of which is when they are removed from them. But these governors too refuse to know that we have 3 tiers of government. The federal government, the state, and the local government. These 3 things will not function effectively. There will be deficiency. If these 3 people are not, if these 3 tiers are not balanced, how are they balanced? The state already have its own autonomy for years. Only they refuse to let local government go. And is there another tier of government that takes care of the grassroots? All right.
So while we dwell on that, Emeka, let's talk about this. On different social media platforms, in a very long while, Nigerians are celebrating the National Assembly for this proposal. Do you think that's good enough a celebration?
Well, the point is, let's start with the 2 sides, the legality and the morality. You look at it morally, yes, it might look like, because of salary, to guarantee salary payment, the payment of salaries, let's do this. But in the long run, what do you do when that issue of payment of salaries is no longer there? One, the legal side, there's nowhere, you cannot exercise powers you don't own. Even if the National Assembly should tweak the Constitution or tweak the Minimum Wage Act and say so, you cannot, because states are federating units. So there's a limit to which the federal government can impose certain things on states. Forget the monarchical kind of government, democracy we are running. There's a limit. Now, there is rank hypocrisy in the way some of these issues are presented. Look at the issue of local government. The federal government, the state governments. The state governments are subnational federating units. You now say there's a third tier, right? Mm-hmm. A third tier. But you don't now give the third tier that power to be federating units. How do you do that? You, in the Constitution, Section 7, you now said that local governments will be supervised by states, like it's done in the United States. You say, they will be under the control of states. But you are not expecting local government autonomy. Why not choose one? If you want local government autonomy, find a way. APC has the highest number of states. It produces the highest number of governors in this dispensation. Let the president and APC governors, first of all, go into a closed-door session. Brainstorm seriously. Both sides will, exact concessions and say, okay, fine. When the next constitutional amendment gets to your states, give me a firm commitment that you are going to support local government autonomy. In return, right? Mm-hmm. These are the concessions that the government will give to you. You can start from there. But When you just leave the issue hanging, then you now want to put the burden on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can only interpret existing laws. With due respect to the Supreme Court, can only interpret existing laws. The Supreme Court cannot dash you what is not in the law.
Sure.
So, the issue of minimum wage, you see, is at the heart of the yearning of Nigerians for good governance. Look, if our leaders were accountable to the people, were responsible, if our leaders were not wicked, sincerely speaking, Nigerians don't care whether states are supervising local governments or whether local governments are supervising states. Nigerians don't care. The point is this: if the bread is buttered on both sides, Nigerians are very easy people to lead.
Very, very well said.
You understand? Yes. So the issue is that on this minimum wage, we must find a way. I don't know whether maybe government workers, the government has to maybe turn salaries into bonds. Because if somebody takes a bond, buys a bond, when it matures, you must pay. You can push every other thing aside, but you must pay that bond. So maybe they should develop bonds that you give workers, that this bond ensures that if you are not paid as agreed, you have a right to go to court, and the court is bound to give you an order to cease the allegation and make sure you are paid. I think if we start taking some novel measures, not that of the federal government seizing, because federal government does not. The same federal government is looking for a loan to do federal rural roads, which is hypocritical.
You see, we can go over and over again, when it comes to local government autonomy and what should be done. I guess it's becoming a perennial issue, which we actually don't know when it will end. But let's move on to the next daily, and this is coming from the Guardian newspaper for today. And the big story here says suspense as employers, workers await transmission of minimum wage bill to a National Assembly. And on the top strip of the same newspaper, why internet fraud by youngsters is thriving despite crackdown by the EFCC. And on the bottom strip of the same newspaper, presidency seeks a public-private partnership to drive economic growth. Now let's speak to that. When the federal government is seeking public-private partnership to drive economic growth, tell me, don't you think this is contradictory, especially when the federal government, in cahoot with the Ministry of Works, are busy destroying, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of businesses simply because they want to construct a highway road? Isn't that a contradictory?
I think, look, we've said this in many fora, and the issue remains that governments at this point should know that they are not employers of labor. No government is an employer of labor. The people who employ is informal sector. Create enabling environment for business to thrive, and everybody will be taken off the streets.
Good.
That is factor. The moment any government sees this and embark on ease of doing business in their locality, check that business, check that state, it will thrive. The revenue generation will increase. Activities in that state will increase. Productivity and good life will improve in that state. For instance, watch Lagos. That is the trajectory. So if federal government didn't know this and they keep muting the idea of running private partnership arrangements with individuals who eventually will turn that business into them at a long run or short run, depends how they agreed on, that is still not going to work. What works is if you are unbundling a particular project or a particular agency, let it go and let an individual handle it. For instance, I've said this so many places. Dangote refinery was built within a short period of time, but federal government could not refurbish
its own refineries.
Its own refinery for how many years now? So individuals thrive in business more, far more than anyone could think. If businesses that are in government's hand are never run smoothly, because same individuals, if they were allowed to run it, might do better. I don't know if they goes to government why it runs that way. I wouldn't be able to tell. But governments have no business in business.
All right, government have no business in business. Emeka, I'd love us to talk about the supposed internet fraud by youngsters striving despite crackdown by EFCC. I don't know, should we nickname this internet fraud, or should the government find a way of restructuring this such that these young boys who are IT savvy could better position their talent into the productive ventures that would be, of course, economical to Nigeria?
The answer is straightforward. Crime is crime. You can't, argue that. Crime is crime. But there are ways you can reform criminal justice administration such a way that you provide for reform, for transformation, of people caught in a crime. So it's not everything that you criminalize. It's not everything that leads to a term in jail. That's why Nigeria now has correctional centers, even though they are still far from exhibiting what that name means. Now, what am I saying coming to what we call internet fraud? Yes, fraud is fraud. Crime is crime. There's no doubt about that. But you see, we have come to a period in a civilization, in the development of humanity, whereby we're now producing children who are digital natives. What the older generation cannot, has been unable to key into. So what a Gen Z, let me call them that, can do with a phone, with any kind of phone, especially, with any smartphone, is far from what the older generation can do with that same phone. Now, what is it? Beginning first from orientation. What kind of orientation are we giving to the youths? If we give them the orientation that anything goes, it is a fair attitude, that crime pays, so many people will jump into it. But where they lead by example, you will find out that it will be difficult for people to go into those things. Because why? When the leaders have this attitude that anything goes, they will also invest in crime. Hope you know. They will invest in crime. The fact that a crime thrives, go and check. Look at the tailback. You must find some influential individuals in society heavily invested in such crimes. And so, what happens? When certain, big-time criminals are arrested, quickly phone calls go out. And this happens all over the world. And somehow or the other, look at the case of Joe Biden and his son. He said no, he will not interfere. But that brings the possibility that, some people he could have also used his power, for his son. And that's what you see in third world countries. People using their powers, their influence to aid crime. So, the fact of the matter is that, EFCC should, continue to crack down on crime. But again, government has to find a way to accommodate those youths who are inclined, to living, within honest means. When there are more of them, you see those who, are inclined to crime, their numbers will reduce.
Very true.
Because you know what? Being digital natives, take those youths, use their ingenuity to fight crime.
All right, so using their ingenuity to fight crime. Lastly and finally, let's move on to Saturday Independent. And the big story here says the latest World Bank report projects a 3.3% growth for Nigeria in 2024. Ziggy, the World Bank, to some pundits, it's neither here nor there. People have called them enemies of most developing economies, and because of their forecast. Their forecast is neither here nor there. But when the World Bank is telling us that they expect a 3.3% growth for Nigeria in 2024, where a bag of garri is going for 80,000 naira, do you think that is
when these postulations are going on? I doubt the authenticity and the arrival at certain digits, okay, and that has failed us in Nigeria many times, right? The reality on ground shows that I don't think we can attain. We are still in 2024, and we are saying before we exceed the year in the next few months, Nigeria's growth will be about 3 points. All these statistics, I don't know how it works for them, and so many statistics of this nature, I know, don't work for nations like ours. Maybe they must have envisaged some other nations as in their growth rates. But Nigeria, the way we are, because the cost and the standard of living is those indices they use in some of these growths. Have they considered these two factors in our lives? I doubt.
Very true.
I doubt.
All right.
And the issue here is, in as much as they want to postulate certain figures or certain digits at a growth rate for the country, I hope they are here to see what we are going through.
Very, very true.
Okay.
Yeah. So this breaks to the question of the layman asking himself, what will the stock market analysis do for him when he can barely find something to eat every other day for himself and his family. Well, that's just the size of our package on this segment. I'd love to say thank you to Ziggy Ibe for being part of our show, Emeka Maduna also for being part of the show.
Thank you for having us.
And just to let you know that both gentlemen will be around, if possible, to take us on in conversation also for today. And when we return, Federal High Court in Abuja discharges Biden's executive Tigran Kambarian and Nadeem Angelwala. We'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere.